21 million barrels of oil pass through a single choke point every day. If that choke point closes within the next 72 hours, your economy does not slow down. It stops. And right now, the most expensive aircraft ever built are positioned to guarantee that outcome. The United States has forward-deployed B-2 Spirit stealth bombers to striking distance of Iranian territory. This is not a routine rotation. This is a specific force posture the Pentagon has used exactly twice in the past 2 decades, and both times it preceded direct military action. Before this video ends, I will show you 3 things. First, the specific weapons configuration these aircraft are carrying, a loadout that reveals exactly what the target set is. Second, the historical parallel from 1956 that tells you precisely how this sequence ends for the nation that initiates it. And third, the direct impact this will have on your fuel costs, your retirement savings, and your grocery bill within 14 days of escalation. If you leave this video early, you will miss the one signal that every major news network has either ignored or failed to connect. If this is the kind of strategic analysis you rely on, collapse signals before they reach the front page, patterns behind the headlines, subscribe to this channel now. This is where you stay ahead of the curve, not behind it. Let me ground this in verified data. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Iran currently operates one of the most dense integrated air defense networks in the Middle East, anchored by Russian-supplied S-300 PMU-2 systems, with an engagement range of approximately 200 kilometers. SIPRI's 2024 assessment identifies over 40 hardened missile sites distributed across western and central Iran, many buried under mountain terrain. The B-2 Spirit, only 20 aircraft exist in the entire U.S. fleet, carries a maximum payload of approximately 40,000 pounds. When loaded with the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound bunker-busting weapon designed specifically for deeply buried targets, each aircraft becomes a single-mission strategic asset. The RAND Corporation's 2023 analysis of Persian Gulf conflict scenarios concluded that a sustained air campaign against Iranian nuclear and missile infrastructure would require several hundred dedicated sorties over a multi-week period, with B-2s handling the hardened targets no other platform can reach. U.S. Central Command confirmed the repositioning of strategic assets to the Diego Garcia facility in the Indian Ocean, a base that places B-2s within operational range of every major Iranian military installation. Commercial satellite imagery analysis has identified increased logistics activity at this facility consistent with combat preparation cycles. But here is what every major outlet completely missed: the deployment is not the story. The weapons loadout is. When B-2s deploy for deterrence, they carry rotary launcher assemblies loaded with GPS-guided conventional munitions, JDAMs, small-diameter bombs. This is a general-purpose configuration. It signals presence, nothing more. But current logistics, chain analysis, and cargo movement data from Diego Garcia suggest a shift to penetrator-heavy configurations. That means the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, a weapon that exists for exactly one purpose: to destroy targets buried under 200 feet of reinforced concrete and mountain rock. You do not load that weapon for deterrence, you load it for execution. Iran knows this. Their response doctrine is not ambiguous. IRGC leadership has stated publicly and repeatedly that any direct strike on Iranian sovereign territory triggers an immediate closure of the Strait of Hormuz using a layered denial strategy. Anti-ship cruise missiles, naval mines, fast attack boats, and shore-based missile batteries positioned along a shipping lane barely 21 miles wide. This is not theoretical. Iran has rehearsed this exact scenario in at least 6 major naval exercises since 2018. The question is not capability, it is intent. Within 72 hours of a strait closure, the global oil market does not spike, it fractures. Approximately 30% of the world's seaborne crude transits the Strait of Hormuz daily. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE all depend on this single passage for the vast majority of their exports. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, no alternative road exists with the capacity to compensate for a full closure. Oil prices, currently trading between $75 and $85 per barrel, would surge past $150 within days under Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan conflict scenario modeling. Some analysts project $200 or higher if the closure extends beyond 2 weeks. China imports roughly 40% of its crude through the strait. India imports approximately 60%. Neither nation will sit passively while its energy supply is strangled. Beijing has already expanded naval presence in the Gulf of Oman. India's navy has increased patrols across the Arabian Sea. Here is the question I want you to answer in the comments right now. Do you believe Iran would actually close the Strait of Hormuz if struck? Or is it a strategic bluff designed purely to deter? Drop your answer below, because the next 72 hours may settle that debate permanently. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia and the UAE face an impossible calculation. support the U.S. operation and risk Iranian missile retaliation against their oil infrastructure, as happened with the devastating 2019 Aramco attack, or distance themselves from Washington and fracture the security architecture that has protected Gulf monarchies for decades. There is no safe option. Every path leads to escalation. I have studied this pattern before. It has a name. Historians call it the Suez moment. In 1956, Britain and France launched a military operation to seize the Suez Canal after Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized it. The canal was the jugular vein of British imperial commerce, much like the Strait of Hormuz is to the global petroleum economy today. Militarily, the operation succeeded. British and French forces took the canal zone within days. Strategically, it was a catastrophe. The United States, then positioning itself as the rising global hegemon, refused to support the operation. International condemnation was universal. A devastating run on the British pound forced London to accept a humiliating ceasefire. Within a decade, Britain had withdrawn from nearly every major overseas military commitment. The empire did not collapse because it lost a war. It collapsed because it won a battle that exposed the fragility underneath its economic foundation. The parallel is precise. The United States now spends over $80 billion annually maintaining military presence in the Middle East, according to the Watson Institute at Brown University. National debt has surpassed $34 trillion. The dollar's status as the global reserve currency faces mounting pressure from BRICS de-dollarization initiatives and central bank gold accumulation at record levels. A military strike on Iran may succeed tactically, but if it triggers a strait closure, even temporarily, it could ignite the kind of economic shock that exposes structural vulnerabilities Washington has papered over for 2 decades. The signal is the same, only the names have changed. Now let me bring this to your front door. If the Strait of Hormuz closes for even 2 weeks, the average price of gasoline in the United States is projected to exceed $7 per gallon, based on modeling by energy consultancy Rapidan Energy Group. In the UK and Australia, fuel prices would follow a comparable trajectory, adjusted for local taxes and exchange rates. But fuel is only the surface layer. Your pension fund holds energy stocks, defense equities, and international positions directly exposed to Middle Eastern instability. A 2024 BlackRock risk assessment identified a significant Persian Gulf conflict as one of the top 3 systemic threats to global retirement portfolios. If you hold a 401k, a superannuation account, or any index-linked retirement fund, you are exposed right now. Your grocery bill rises next. Modern agricultural supply chains run on diesel fuel and petrochemical-based fertilizers. A sustained oil price shock cascades into food prices within 4 to 6 weeks. We saw a preview of this exact mechanism during the 2022 Russia-Ukraine disruption, when global food prices spiked over 30% in a matter of months. Your mortgage rate is vulnerable. Central banks facing an oil-driven inflation shock would be forced to choose between rate hikes that crush housing markets or rate holds that let inflation devour purchasing power. There is no good option. There is only damage selection. This is not abstract geopolitics playing out on a distant map. This is your household budget under direct threat from a decision being made right now in a situation room you will never see. If someone you care about, your partner, your parents, your adult children, manages their own savings or retirement funds, they need to hear this analysis before the headlines catch up to reality. Send them this video now. It may be the most important 10 minutes they watch this month. There is one more development I have not mentioned until now because it changes the entire calculus. Over the past 72 hours, commercial maritime tracking data has flagged an unusual pattern. At least 3 Iranian Kilo-class submarines, diesel-electric boats specifically designed for shallow water mine-laying operations, have departed their berths at Bandar Abbas and moved into positions consistent with pre-conflict dispersal protocols. Submarine dispersal is one of the final indicators on the Iranian escalation ladder. It means Tehran is not waiting to decide whether to close the strait. It is pre-positioning the assets to execute closure on command. The question no one in Washington is publicly answering is this. If Iran has already dispersed its closure assets into operational positions, does a U.S. strike prevent the blockade or guarantee it? I will cover this in the next video. Specifically, the classified wargame outcomes that Rand modeled for this exact scenario, and why the results reportedly alarmed senior Pentagon leadership. That video is coming within days. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. Second question for the comments. Do you believe the United States can militarily prevent a Strait of Hormuz closure, or is the geography simply unwinnable? Tell me your reasoning below. 21 million barrels a day. That was the number I opened with. Now you understand what stands between that flow and a full stop. A 21-mile wide corridor, 3 quiet submarines, and a decision that may have already been made. Subscribe to this channel for strategic intelligence that reaches you before the consequences do. If this analysis sharpened your understanding, hit the like button. It surfaces this to the people who need to see it most. Watch our full Strait of Hormuz deep dive next. It is linked on screen now. The analysis presented in this video is based on publicly available information and represents editorial opinion. Sources are linked in the description.